Hey YouTube, welcome back to Love for Crypto. You've not heard from me for a while. I've been busy. I also swore an oath to myself to not continue recirculating the same old is a good way of putting it. In respect to developments in the space, Scott sort of took on that role of producing you the daily content, so to speak. And I actually sent a tweet out mid-December last year explaining how I actually planned on launching a new podcast series. I would have ideally liked to have started it a little bit earlier. Nonetheless, we've got there in the end. We've actually got our first pre-production recording this Friday with Jungle Link, who actually offered the first podcast episode to go to. Obviously, Jungle Link's an inspiring member of this community. He's got a big following, an admirable following as well, and he's a voice of reason within the space. And for myself personally, I would like to get to know Jungle a little bit more. But this video is just basically to highlight a certain few things moving forward for myself personally, what my aims are. To help this channel obviously grow further and to help further educate yourselves. So as I mentioned, we've got Jungle Link starting on Friday. We've also got another sort of high figure person coming onto the podcast. I think that's Tuesday next week, called Zuby. I've been following him for a while, to be fair, and I was quite shocked to realise he was following us back. He is into Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. He's sort of more on the political sphere. He's your typical right-winger. He's a big advocate about, obviously, the self-identity politics and stuff like that, which we'll probably go into. And then following from that, we've actually got the legend himself, John McAfee. I am absolutely really looking forward to this one with John McAfee. I know he's been doing the rounds, been doing a few podcasts with other channels, podcast channels, not necessarily crypto, but I have seen him do a few with crypto, and I've not been happy to say the least with a single one of them so far. This is John McAfee at the end of the day, people. His background speaks volumes. He's an encryption god. If you don't know who he is, the McAfee antivirus was his original brand back into the 90s as the internet era started to unfold. And I've got some seriously mind-boggling questions that I'm going to put to him that will relate to Ripple and XRP. To high members of the Ripple team, David Schwartz, I've got a lot of questions to ask in respect to that, because there was a lot of stuff with John McAfee in respect to Satoshi, the identity, the team behind the movement of the Bitcoin white paper, etc. I'm really looking forward to that one. And I don't know how we've managed to do it. I've tried for a while, but the fourth one, which will be at the start of February, is Gregory Mannarino, and we're going to absolutely go deep into the economic cycles, his perspective on things. And in all fairness, I like to do an economic update myself, as you well know if you do follow the channel. And I'm no economist. I'm really not. I listen to the right people, I absorb the right information, and then create up my own sort of perspective and way that I can put that across to the community in a digestible manner without head fucking people, is a good way of putting it. So the first four podcasts is Jungle Link, Zuby, John McAfee, and Gregory Mannarino. And it's a good diverse mixture of personalities there. We've got obviously Jungle Link, who's primarily focused on the developments in the XRP space. We've then got Zuby, who's also an advocate of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. But then we can also sort of go into the political aspects of things with him. And understand his sort of generalization of the climate that we're actually in this day and age. Moving forward from that, we've then got McAfee, where we can speak deep about privacy, about corruption, about the deep state, the banking cabal. He knows this stuff. He's a fugitive, if you want to call it that. I'm not too sure what they call the tax over there now. They've sort of got their own tax office. I think it's been done for tax evasion, although he does claim that in the Constitution there is no law to state that the citizens of the USA should pay taxes. And then obviously we've got Greg Mannarino. As you all well know, I've highly promoted him so many times on this channel, and you know, we're just going to dive deep into the economics, the upcoming financial crisis, which is inevitable at this point. You know, we're going further and further into the debt expansion. And obviously, you know, he's a strong advocate of becoming your own central bank, own gold, own silver, and own cryptos. And as a few of you would have seen on Twitter, he's actually come out and said that he owns XRP. So it would be nice to actually get a true understanding of, does he understand the vision of what's happening around there? And, you know, at the end of the day, is this an enslavement mechanism for the banking cabal to digitally enslave the population? You know, these podcasts, if you have followed our channel and you understand sort of the analysis that we do, the deep diving that I once did do back in 2018, I obviously took a long time away from the channel. But what my aim further is going forward now is to ensure that we can at least try and get one good figure per week, so we can premiere the actual podcast live to yourselves on a Saturday night or Wednesday night. Not too sure yet on the date itself. And obviously after that, we've actually lined up Gareth Ike as a big 95% closure, to obviously get him on as the third person of the podcast series. Now, as many of you may or may not know, Gareth Ike is the son of David Ike. And progressively moving forwards, hoping everything goes well with Gareth, we can actually try and steal a bit of David's time. I mean, David Ike is a legend within himself, and you know, a lot of people will throw out all the reptilian bullshit and aliens bullshit, but irrespective to the nonsense calls, if you want to call it that, you know, the man has been right for decades, and he was foreseeing the events of what we see today decades ago. So the direction of where we're going with it, as you can tell from what I've told you today, we are going to focus the podcast around crypto as much as possible, but we are obviously going to walk outside of that crypto sphere itself, and then obviously start diving into other aspects of the stuff. David Icke will be a phenomenal guest to get onto the show. In all fairness, Gregory Mannarino, we're going to absolutely smash it out the park in regards of the economy side of things, you know, with the central bank stimulus continuing, the biggest debt expansion in history. And then obviously we've got John McAfee. We can then obviously go into the corruption of the world, you know, the surveillance of people, how privacy no longer exists, what his thoughts are in the actual movement with Ripple and XRP, i.e. one of the questions you do want to put to John is obviously in regards of Satoshi. You know, he was actually at one point sort of suggesting that David Schwartz was involved in that. It's always been something of my own sort of personal belief as well. But obviously with David being an ex-NSA sort of employee, you know, he's got bounds and constricts around him where if summoned to the NSA, he simply hasn't got a choice. And I'd like to see what his perspective is on the fact that obviously Ripple are in bed with all the central banks and governments around the world. And obviously if you've been watching any of the World Economic Forum this week, then obviously, you know, we can see a big push on the digitalization moving forward. You know, CBDCs, I'm not saying we was the first channel to talk about CBDCs, but you know, at the very start of 2018 we did say that this is going to come, and we're now at a critical point where major central banks around the world are actually inputting tremendous amounts of capital and research into obviously developing their own sovereign digital currencies, so to speak. So it's going to be some good shit, people, honestly. You know what I'm like. Listen, at the end of the day, I'm not going to fear any personality that comes onto this podcast. I'm going to be shooting straight from the hip. I'm going to be keeping it as real as you always will be. I won't be tiptoeing around the people. I'll be asking the questions that our sort of community and followers that we've sort of obtained over the past 2 years will want to hear. You know, if you like the documentaries that I made, you can bet your ass this type of content is going to be based around that sort of structure of the world. I'm a big believer of, obviously, the elites, the cabal, the banking cabal, you know, the deep state, the shadow government. You know, it is a reality. It is not a myth. You know, moving forwards, the information and the, obviously, content that's out there for free to be able to obtain that information and educational knowledge is a reality. You know, it is not a hoax or a conspiracy, some people will call it. And these elites always have a working agenda. And obviously the way that we see Ripple and XRP moving forwards, their invitations to sort of like the Swiss National Banking Conference, where it was all major central bank figures, all major, what's the word for it now, sort of like the treasury aspects of things. We're obviously hearing stuff from Steve Mnuchin from the US. Again, I always use the US as an example because they are sort of the financial global sort of centre stone of the world. And I think without their permission, things will be a little bit difficult moving forwards for Ripple. But as we are seeing, we're seeing very good strides of progress in regards of the acceptance of what this technology is. Obviously at Davos yesterday, I think it was the Circle CEO who said the two main highlights that have been raised are, you've obviously got these consortium of technology companies creating the Libra coin, obviously via Facebook and all the other sort of you know, corporations that are involved in that. But then we've also got the exchange aspect of things. You know, CBDCs are going to be great. They are going to monitor the population. They are going to gather data on spending habits. But again, it is their own individual silo, and we do need that bridge intermediate currency in order for that exchange to flow through the internet the same way that data does. Again, I do apologise for my absence. I am active on Twitter. I do sort of use Twitter as my own personal sort of social media outlet. I'm not really on any other ones, Instagram, Facebook. I'm not a really big advocate of social media, but in regards to Twitter, it is a platform I actually do enjoy going on. So I am on Twitter. You know, if there is any questions you do want to put forward to us, obviously you can just drop us an inbox. If not, drop us a comment, so we can obviously reply back to that. But again, my aim moving forwards now, personally, don't get me wrong, people doing good jobs out there in the crypto industry. We see new faces that are creating content, which is always great to see. Bonfire Guy is probably one of my favourites at the moment, as well as Notorious, because I enjoy the cinematic way that they sort of put it across. And Bonfire Guy's obviously nailing it on the head with the level playing field. Again, you know, this isn't an egotistical statement when I say this, but in March 2019, you know, we was laying this terminology out, the level playing field, before it was even a popular thing or an even known thing, especially not in the way that it's used today within crypto. Everyone's fucking using it for every Tom, Dick and Harry explanation. And obviously the level playing field doesn't necessarily sort of determine and asphyxiate itself around digital assets. It is in regards of trade deals. It is in regard of creating that open and fair world. Again, we're moving into a multipolar world now. We are going to be moving away from the independence and reliance upon the US dollar as the world reserve currency, and each RTGS system will have their own reserve, their own working capital held within their own economy, that can then, rather than having to hold a reserve asset like such as the United States dollar, they will be able to use bridge intermediaries through this digital age that we're going to clearly move forward into. At this point, it's no longer speculation. It is a matter of if, not when. And again, you know, this could be a 10-year journey from this point. Me and Scott do speak a lot about this. Listen, at the end of the day, I was very optimistic. I am still very optimistic, although I do believe I have been pushed down a few pegs in regards of timescale. Listen, the famous quote goes without saying, people will always overestimate technology in the short run, but will greatly underestimate it in the long run. And that's what our job here is, to inform and educate the people of where this is going. This is going to be a big journey. We've always stated on our videos, specifically my documentaries, you know, 2030 is sort of the full maturity and what would be the best word for it, the adoption of the technology to be seen used on a large scale in every day-to-day life, so to speak. So yeah, it's just a quick update. Again, I do apologise for my not being there. I am always there through Twitter. Scott is obviously keeping you up to date with his bite-sized videos in the mornings, which we've got a good handful of people that actually do love and enjoy those videos. But as I have said to Scott, I have said, look, listen, Scott, there's only so much that can be said without going round full circle and then having to repeat yourself. Again, you've obviously got your announcements, you've got your sort of updates that may come from Ripple or from partnerships. I agree, you know, that's great to get that message out, but the days of recycling the information for me are over, and I needed to sort of create a new sort of way that I could go around keeping myself interested as well as the community. And I think by bringing on high level figures, I mean, don't get me wrong, Jungle Link is a massive person in the XRP community and he's got a great following, but you know, when we're speaking with the likes of John McAfee and Gregory Mannarino, you know, we're talking, and John McAfee's got millions of followers on Twitter, Gregory Mannarino's nearly 100,000 on YouTube, and I want to ideally try and capture those personalities who have got the actual working expertise in their own individual traits, i.e. Gregory's the economy, you've got John McAfee, who's sort of surveillance, encryption, computer science, and Zuby, again, the reason that we've approached him, he has got the interest with cryptocurrency, but not only that, I do like to hear his political aspects of things. I kick with my right foot, you know, sorry to all the left-winger followers out there, but I am a hard right sort of political sort of siding, if you want to call it that. And again, Jungle Link, you know, he's a massive member of the community, and I would love to have obviously brought him on as our first guest. So we'll be filming Jungle on Friday, we've got Zuby on Tuesday, we've then got John McAfee the following Friday, and then Gregory Mannarino will be early February. What we're going to do, we're going to record these on our own through Zoom. Scott's going to edit the videos, create into a sort of a nice theme, nice structured. If we do talk about specific things, we can obviously throw that in and overlap it. And then we will be live putting them premiered live on YouTube, just so you've got a good few days notice. Once we've got all of them together, I'd like to think, you know, the week after we'll start laying them out there. I think with these four, it'll probably be a Saturday, Wednesday, and then we've got to finalise the date with Gareth Ike, who, like I say, it's 90% there, and I'm really hoping that Gareth can sort of see the value that we do bring to our own community, and the work that we do will obviously then enlighten his father, David Ike, who to me is a fucking role model legend, if you want to call it that. And if we can get David on the show, then we really are making progress with where we wanted to go with this podcast series. And for myself, I'm particularly really looking forward to it. I just wanted to make this little update video as we are nearing the end of January and no content yet has to be delivered. But you can guarantee one thing, these podcasts will not be no tiptoeing. There will be no fairy dust bullshit talk. This is going to be straight from the fucking mouth, straight from the hip, unedited, unbiased, talking about opinions from people who specialise in certain aspects. And again, listen, we live in a corrupt world at the end of the day. The establishment, the cabal, the shadow government, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call it, you know, there is people of power that do have significant control and direction over things, i.e. technology, in regards of, for example, 5G and the DLT. And as we can see, Ripple and XRP have, I'd like to say, have been welcomed in with both arms. But again, is there a hidden agenda behind the reasoning with it? Okay, yeah, it's great, it can cut down settlement times, it's inclusive and all that, but don't forget, you know, once we've got digital footprints in finance, we can easily be enslaved within that system and be as easily cut out as it was easily to be brought into it. I'm going to cut the video short of that. I don't really want to make it too long-winded. Again, I'll be doing my updates for this on Twitter. I'm sure Scott and Chris and Boo Boo will also help spread the word for these podcast series that we are doing. So you've got plenty of time to obviously get round to watching it. I mean, obviously once it's gone live, it's still going to be there, so you'll be able to see it. But when it's live, we will be in the chat ourselves, so we can sort of communicate with the members of the community. I'm not a big fan of doing live streams, but I like the way that SPQR was laying out their deep dives, doing the live streams, how they could engage, and I really enjoy their work. And it gave me a great idea to be able to roll out our content in that way. Ladies and gentlemen, I can promise you one thing, these podcasts will be fucking brutally honest and epic. So look forward to seeing you all very soon in the future. And hopefully the next time you see me, I will be sat side by side with Jungle, and that will be being filmed this Friday. And we've got a fucking great schedule so far to hit at. If you have got any questions that you would like being raised in any of these podcasts, drop obviously a comment in the sections below. Listen, I'm all ears for questions, regardless and irrespective of what type of question that is. If you've got any question for Greg Mannarino, for John McAfee, for Zuby, or for Jungle, obviously your input is more than welcome in the comment section. And again, when we do put these podcasts out, it'd be a great help if you could help us share the awareness. I think after we've done the first couple, once we've got this chunk done, this first segment, sort of the first 4 or 5 podcasts, I think people will really enjoy the work that we are going to start doing moving forwards. For myself personally, I'm not trying to say that I'm Joe Rogan. I love watching Joe Rogan podcasts, and I want to try and get that atmosphere, that feel to the content moving forwards, especially for myself personally. Again, Scott's going to continue with the daily bite-sized videos, or every other day whenever he finds some useful information. We just want to try and build an honest channel, a brutally honest channel. Try to remove the hype out of the equation, try to move the FUD out of the equation, try and look at it as a level head. I myself has matured massively as an investor since when I first started getting in there. I used to scream into the camera, fucking, whoa, do you know what I mean? Fucking excited. But listen, the excitement is still there. The realization of the length and the adoption is more that sort of made me more as a mature sort of investor, if you want to call that. And I just want to try and pass on the correct message to the community. We've got a big following now. Back then we hardly had any people. We have a responsibility for ourselves. So apart from that, ladies and gentlemen, I will see you in the podcast series.